Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/AHTT. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Ain't Hard to Tell podcast, episode 116, still practicing that social distancing. Dexter Henry, Bryan Fonseca in New York. And for the first time in doing our Skype podcasting, we have a guest from the West Coast. We have been trying to get this woman on the podcast for quite some time. It's not that
21 months.
It's not that she's been avoiding us because she loves us. We have a mutual friend.
No, there were a couple of times we were trying to do it in person and it didn't work out.
It just didn't work out.
And then everybody got sick, so we're just like, you know what? Now's the time to do it.
And now is the time. We have my favorite long-form sports journalism writer, Mirin Fader. Yeah, you're our favorite. So we are glad to have you on here. Mirin Fader from Bleacher Report. Mirin, what's up? It's good to finally meet you, talk to you, see you, even though we are 3,000 miles apart. It's good.
No, I love you guys too. I'm so happy to finally do this. There have been so many times we got close. I was in Manhattan, didn't understand the geographic difference, New York. And
we were hoping that you would be in town for the draft, but judging how things are going, we don't even know how that's going to play out.
Yeah. I know. And we've been hit the hardest, right? New York, California.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm currently sheltering in place. I feel okay, all things considered, I'm just trying to practice gratitude. It could be so much worse. I've had so many friends lose jobs. I'm worried about my family, but, I'm employed, I'm healthy, I'm safe. I have food, thank God. But I'm definitely gaining a lot of weight with all this junk food. I've never been in my apartment this many hours at a time. It's just right there. But, all things considered, I'm okay.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you're good. We're doing the same. I'm trying to practice that same gratitude as well, too, right? Like just being grateful that, not just for work, but just time spent with my family. My daughter, I've been trying to really enjoy that as much as I can because, we don't get all this time. We're always busy going place to place and doing what we have to do. So we appreciate that. We'll get into this. We always like to do this when people first come on. We're very familiar with your work. We love your work, as we said from the top.
Yep.
You are, I consider, a really great journalist. Tell people how you got into the game of journalism, sports journalism. How did Mirin Fader get into this game?
Yeah, so I used to be a basketball player. I loved basketball, but I've always been very short, very, very tiny.
So you and Bryan can relate together with that.
I was a very undersized point guard, except I kind of played like Patrick Beverley, but more of a passer also. So What was your playing style like? I'm actually very curious.
No, I was exactly like Pat Beverly, Nate Robinson energy, very in your face.
Yes.
Because I had the athleticism. I mean, I was fast, but obviously I was not tall. I was literally 5 feet. And my mom was like, "You're gonna grow." I grew 5 inches in college. It's gonna happen to you. Never happened.
Threes and floaters.
Just nice little teardrop. And
Dex, I'm telling you, I know all about this life, man. I'm telling you.
Mirin,
I sent them a story recently where one of the wins that we had in high school got covered in the newspaper. I had 10 assists, 0 points. I was like, I'm not going in there. It's not happening. It happens like that.
I have never seen this on this podcast where two short people have bonded together in this way. So it's nice.
I feel seen.
That's good.
Dex is just over there being 6'3" and shit.
Yeah, I'm just all alone. I'm sorry.
It's just not fair. Tall people don't even know what they have. I swear, you guys just walk around just with this advantage, and you just don't even appreciate.
Are you saying that I walk around with tall person privilege? Is that what's going on?
I think that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay. Tall person privilege. Wait, Brian, your microphone came out, so we're not hearing you right now. I caught him. He was saying
I
stuff.
said now can you
Yeah, I
hear
hear
me?
you. Yeah, we got you.
I said you could reach for certain things in the supermarket that we can't.
Yo,
You know what I'm saying?
I
Like,
literally just had that happen in the supermarket, but people use us for that. We're often used. People need us to
yeah,
help
can
them
you
in
get
supermarket.
this?
Yeah, that
But
happens.
now I can't do that because now I'm afraid everyone has corona, so I can't ask anyone for help.
Ah, fair point. I'm sorry, we totally derailed your story, but this was
Anyway,
information
sorry.
people needed to know. People need to know. Go ahead, Mary.
This is
Okay.
true.
So I love basketball. I played basketball all my life. I was like, I want to go, to the WNBA, overseas, all of that, and pushed it as far as it could go. Like I played AAU. I played my first year in college. I had a horrible injury right before college with my foot. I basically tore like every ligament, and so all the schools recruiting me like stopped except for the one school in Oregon. So I ended up there. Really didn't like it, but was having also like an intellectual awakening at the same time, like with books and reading and writing. And I just started taking a lot of like interesting writing classes. And I knew basketball, like that point where it's like coming to an end and you know it and you have to like move on.
Yeah.
Been there.
Yeah, we've all been there, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so I was just like, this isn't for me anymore. Like, this identity that I had my whole life is no longer. And so I was just like, okay, like I have to do something else with my life. And I was thinking like, maybe I should be a sports writer because I love writing. Like I've literally written in my diary every day since 5th grade. Like I'm a total nerd and writer and lover of, words, reading. So I just thought like this will allow me to stay in basketball. And then that's how it started. So.
Nice.
Wow. It's just funny because Dex, you and I were talking about not that long ago about, all right, the end of sort of your basketball career.
Yeah.
And seeing, just sort of experiencing it. I know before you went to Pitt, you had played in high school.
Yep.
I had played in high school before I went to St. Francis. So I feel like every journalist kind of has that point where they're playing a sport. Then it's like, yo, am I really going to go pro? Like I was thinking about walking onto a college, but then I was like, I'm not going to get any playing time and I'm not going to make money playing the sport. So it is what it is. What I wanted to ask you just more about the writing side, because you said you have written in a diary literally every day since what, 5th grade?
That's dope.
Okay. Well, you sound embarrassed by that, but just I feel like in some ways that's probably helped your writing. Although I kind of want to know what can you share in terms of like what have you been writing down for those times? Because I know diaries are technically supposed to be personal, but
one time I revisited them and I was like, oh my gosh, actual cringe. Like I'm just gonna go barf over there. But the first day I started writing in my diary was the first day I played basketball. And I don't know what prompted the two. I find it really interesting looking back on it now, but I was like, because that day that I played, it was so like, I know it sounds really corny, but it was so magical to me that I had to write it down because I wanted to like think about it more. And like, I don't know, writing was always like my favorite thing in school. And so my first diary entry was literally like, I tried this thing called basketball and it was just really corny. And definitely the ball didn't go in. Like I was not a natural, but it was so dumb. It was like all the boys were there.
That was gonna be my follow-up because I was like, all the best stuff is probably from like middle school to high school about all the dudes that you were pissed at throughout that time of your life.
Literally, because I started playing, so I became the first girl to join my elementary school's boys basketball team, and so they like, hated it. They were like, "Why is she here? She doesn't even play. Like she just bought these shoes yesterday." Like they were so annoyed. And one time this guy who actually ended up playing D1 football, I was guarding him and he ended up like tackling me and I went to the ER and it was so crazy. And this guy that I had like a huge crush on, like my teammate, he stayed with me like in the nurse's office.
Oh, I thought he was going to be the one that tackled you.
He was like, man, you really took that hit. And he was like so proud of me. And I was just like dying, because I was, like,
inside you were just melting. You're like, oh, he cares.
I was just, oh my God, not only am I tough, but like my crush sees it. And like, it was just so dumb. But anyways, I fell in love with basketball. I loved basketball. And writing, honestly, throughout the years, like I went through so many things being short, and just people would always underestimate me and always tell me like, you're not going to make it. You're not good
Dex,
enough. I know.
what I
I know.
told you, Dex, come on, son. We just talked about this.
I
I'm
know.
telling you.
This
And,
this is the dream podcast scenario for Bryan. Mirin, I don't think you understand. Like, he is always championing the short folks and fighting for everything. And here's the thing: I respect a lot of short basketball players for that exact reason. Right? You have to earn everything that in the game. Nothing is given to you. Really, short players in any sport, to be honest. Cornerbacks are
But
like
you
that
ha-
in
you
football.
but you have to do it in journalism also, because you're just a regular citizen. You're just a regular citizen, and you're going in locker rooms, and the athletes are 6'4", 210, and you have to earn their respect. Like, it's different. You're
Honestly,
6'3", you're taller than some of the point guards in the NBA. I'm probably Isaiah Thomas's height at best.
yeah, no, I never thought that all of those days playing basketball and being underestimated would actually serve me well, because when I go in the locker room now, I am always underestimated. I mean, they think that I'm somebody's like sister. Like, they don't think that I'm like a reporter.
Yeah.
And I've had people be like, so like, where's the reporter? And it's like, right here.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. So
See, Dex, you got to know about this life, man. That doesn't even surprise me
No,
that
no,
people
no.
will be that way.
I am glad to. I'm glad we can inform the people about that life. So, Mirin, after you know, because it's great to hear that inspiration that you had, and you were writing in the diary every day, so you always had this love. After you graduated college and you were making sort of that transition, right? Saying, "Hey, I'm done with this basketball thing. I'm going to go to this journalism thing." What was that transition like for you, and how did what was your first opportunity into writing professionally?
yeah, it was actually really, really painful. I went through a whole like depression, and
Mm.
just it was just an identity crisis, because every part of me was changing. Like, I wore basketball shorts every day from like kindergarten to like throughout senior year of high school. Like, I carried a ball with me every day, like literally my entire years of schooling. Like, you knew
Wow.
me as like the girl with the basketball. And so suddenly, like, I wasn't her anymore. And that was just like really, really hard. Like, I just had no idea who I was without basketball. And like, but I think like I just had this determinate, like I didn't want to be left behind. Like, I felt like life was just moving on without me, and it didn't matter that my dream didn't come true. Like, I had to figure it out. Like, I went to a really good school, Occidental College, where like everyone was super smart, and like, everyone had all these internships, and I just felt like so behind because I just had no idea what I wanted to do anymore. I wanted to go into journalism, but obviously I had no experience. So it's not like people were like, write for us, It was just like, it was very, it was like so many rejections. I did things that had nothing to do with sports. Like, I wrote obits.
I've done that. I've done that. I started my
Yeah,
career doing that. Yep.
right. And also, LA is such a competitive market, and so like I was coming from a really small school, and I was competing against all the kids that went to USC with their journalism school and the Lakers internships, and so I really didn't get anything till my junior year of college. I just kept like applying, and I covered my team's basketball team, and I think that started to make me feel better, because I realized like in telling stories about other people, like I forgot about my own, and it became like so like healing to feel part of a team again when I'm not on the team, but I'm just like near it. And I just realized, and then I had random assignments: do a football feature, do a tennis feature.
Right.
And then I realized it wasn't about basketball anymore. It was about writing and reporting, and I started like just falling in love again, honestly, with like something new. And it was so exciting. And so yeah, so I reached out to like Slam, and I would say like, how about a story on this person? And, I'd get majority no's, but then I got one yes. And then one yes turned into two yeses. And then I just started freelancing in college.
That's it.
Wow. Okay. I had one thing I want to point out first before I get to my actual question. We have very similar, just sort of the whole wearing the basketball
height.
shorts for all those years, carrying a basketball. I used to sleep in my uniform at one point.
Oh,
You know what I mean? Like, I like all these similar things, and then also going to schools. Like, you went to Occidental College, and I went to St. Francis in Brooklyn, New
okay.
York, which a lot of people outside of New York don't hear of. In
Right.
this market where there's Fordham, Syracuse in the area, a lot of kids from here also go to Northwestern. They go to Columbia, which is right there in the city. So it's just all very similar. And I'm just listening to this, and I'm like, wow, this is crazy. Um, how hard was it to get that first yes? And what was that sort of process like? Because I mean, we know like getting the first one is always difficult, and getting the ones after even more so sometimes.
You know, it was really hard because I noticed that like all of my men's pitches were getting turned down, but when I pitched a woman, they said yes. And so that's what actually got me in the door. So I've been going to UCLA basketball camp since I was like a child. Like I've come from a family of Bruins. Like all my three uncles went there, my mom went there. And so I used to go to the UCLA women's basketball games, and I was just at a game for fun, and I saw this girl on the court, this woman on the court who looked exactly like Kyle Korver, literally, and it was freaking me out. And she started making threes, and I was like, oh my god, like I think like she must be related. And then I looked, and it was Carrie Korver, and they are related.
Oh, I thought it was gonna be Kyle.
No, it was really not. And so I was like, oh, this is the pitch, this is the one. And so I sent it to the LA Daily News, and they turned it down, and I was so crushed. I thought it was the one. And then Slam, this is my junior year in college. Yeah. And then I pitched it to Slam, and they said yes. And I couldn't believe it. Like Slam, I had been a subscriber, you know, all my life. Like my wall was like all the Slam ups. Like
Me too.
I just, it was like, it was great. And then so that happened. And, you know, actually writing about women's sports got me into a lot of spaces. But then it was very hard to tell people like, yeah, but I can write about men too. Because they didn't know me, you know, they didn't know I played pickup with guys my whole life. Like I was one of the guys, but they didn't know that. And so it took a while to like get people to understand I'm not like a woman's writer. I'm not like a women's basketball person. I'm just like a writer that happens to be a woman that can write about any sport. But yeah, it took a while to get that.
Do you think that they pigeonholed you in the early going? Because like, okay, you're a woman, so you can't write about men. Do you think that that's what they were thinking when that was going on?
Yeah, I think a lot of places were a little hesitant in that sense. I also think like, so I started my career at the Orange County Register from 2013 to 2017, and I had reached out to like over 50 places, and I either got like no's or didn't hear back, and they were the only place that I heard back from. So when I was there, I was covering men's sports. Like I was doing Cal State Fullerton baseball, I was doing like UC Irvine basketball, like I was doing all the high school stuff, all the men's stuff. But on the side, I was freelancing a bit for ESPNW, and obviously ESPNW is a lot of women's stuff. And so because that was national and the OC stuff was local and behind a paywall, people kind of like were starting to associate me with just like ESPNW, and it was hard to like say like, no, like I do baseball or I do
It put
NBA.
you in a box.
Yeah, so I found myself. So I called it the women's box, and I was like stuck in it, and I hate saying that because I know there's so many women that feel so much pride covering women, and I do too. I don't want that to get confused. I love covering women. I have my entire career. I still do, but it's not like I don't want to be like defined by that. I want to be able to cover everything. So it did take a while. I think once LaMelo Ball came out, it was like, okay, like Mirin can cover you know, basketball and like NBA. And so that was really good for me to break out of that a bit, I think.
Well, we're going to get back to that LaMelo Ball story. I did want to ask, because Bryan brought up something about you guys having a very similar experience, not just in the height, right? But also the college experience. And I feel like I have that same one too, because I went to a not a big journalism school, right? And I have always said,
I mean, it was still a university, though.
I mean, it was. But look. This is not the height
but
privilege.
I know what you mean. Y'all are like the redheaded stepchild of the ACC. I get it.
I mean, no, I didn't go to Syracuse. I didn't go to Northwestern. A lot of people coming from my school are not reporters. Never mind reporting on a national level. So for me, I've always had this chip on my shoulder. And I'll say to some degree, I know Bryan and I have talked about this. Mirin, do you feel like you've had that because you had to navigate in spaces where nothing was pretty much handed to you, right? You weren't a kid that went to USC or UCLA and had these opportunities. Have you always felt like you had that chip on your shoulder as well?
Yeah, I definitely did. Like when I would finally get the internships and I would like be around them, I felt like there was just like such an arrogance that they had of like going to these schools and and I felt it, and but then, you know, I had so I did an internship with ABC Sports my junior summer after my junior year. And, you know, the editor was like, Occidental College, that's new. That's different. I like it. So at that point, it just made me think like, okay, like That's awesome. Like I learned different skills. We didn't even have journalism. There's no journalism program at
Mm.
Oxy. Like so
Mm.
I was an English major. So, I learned I felt the chip, but I learned to appreciate such a great education like what I did have. Like I learned to close read. I got to have mentors as professors, like there were so many things that I did have and did get that are beyond, journalism and all those things. But yeah, I felt many chips. I thought being short, like we talked about, like still a thing. I look really young, so people think I'm like an intern. Most sports writers are male. The women that you see are mostly on TV. So I
Hmm.
did, but
Mm.
but it's the same with being a basketball player and you feel that determination to prove everyone wrong. I really felt that way in journalism too. I was just like, no, I have to show people I can do this. Because at the OC Register, they really didn't see my potential. Like I just wasn't moving up. It was an all boys club. I was there for 4 years. Like I didn't get raises. I mean, it was rough. I was
Wow.
really grinding. I was really struggling, and so I definitely was just determined to prove people wrong.
What was the jump like for you, getting to Bleacher Report and getting that opportunity and working under our great friend Christina Tapper for some time?
Oh,
Shout
Two-time
out to
podcast
yeah, two-time
guest.
podcast guest. Shout out to Christina. Mirin, what was it like to get to Bleacher Report where you're now, where it seems like you've kind of opened your wings a lot more, right? And writing, I would figure, more of the stories that you've always kind of wanted to tell.
yeah, I mean, I cannot declare my love for Christina enough. I mean, I just literally, I love that woman. Like, I owe her so much. Like, my career would not happen without her. I mean, as soon as she got hired to be our managing editor, she was like, I'm hiring you. You're my first hire. Because I was a
Mm.
freelancer. I was freelance for BR for over a year while I was still at the Register. And I just wasn't getting it. I wasn't getting the job. Same with ESPN. I was just like, why won't anybody hire me? I was half
Hmm.
ESPN, half BR. And as soon as, Christina got her position, she was like, no, I want you. And so I owe so much to her. And I think coming to Bleacher it was just the best thing that could ever happen. Like I think when I first started out in journalism, a lot of people were like, why do you want to be a features writer? Like, you need to be a beat writer. And I just didn't want to. I didn't care. I think because like basketball was over for me, I just stopped caring about it in the way that I used to. Like I used to be an encyclopedia person. Like I could tell you where somebody played, who they are. And then all that stuff just became like so irrelevant. Like I don't really care that this person had 11 rebounds. I wanted like something deeper. And
Yo, you're hitting us in the soul because
Yes, you were hitting us in the soul.
this is the shit that we be talking about, Marin. I'm telling
And,
you.
and Marin,
Like,
you and I had this. We once DM'd each other. And we were talking about long form journalism, right? And I was talking to you about what you do and how I really am trying to get into more doing sports in the long form. And this is a
right,
question I'm gonna have coming up for you and the love for it. But
right.
you kind of encapsulated what I've always felt, which is like I kind of stopped caring about the numbers part of it, right? It doesn't mean I don't want to listen to it anymore, but I feel like
Yeah,
there's so much more to offer in the storytelling than that. You
right.
can
yeah,
continue.
like
Yeah.
the individual games aren't as important as you think they are at one point in your life, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it used to. If I had a bad game, I mean, it would just wreck my entire soul.
Same.
And now I'm just like, I look back and I'm like, God, I wasted so many years like crying about bad games that like have no impact on my future right now. And I just look at it now and it's like my approach and why I love working at Bleacher, to your previous point, is
Yeah.
that like I'm not really concerned about the physical. I'm concerned about what's going on in here and here, the head and the heart. Like that is so much more, like the inward journey is so much more important to me than the outward. So
Got it.
they're related. Like I touch on obviously someone's skill because whatever you do on the court is impacted by everything that happens to you off the court and vice
Hmm.
versa. Just like I think I don't really feel I'm a sports writer, but I'm really a writer that writes about people and that happen to play sports.
Exactly.
I like that. I like that a lot. Do you think that I always feel like this challenge on the video side of things, right? Like, do you feel like the long form features? Do you feel like that's dead? Do people still care? I love reading. I love watching this stuff all
Same.
the time. I love creating it, right?
Same.
Do you feel like it's dead? I know people sometimes. I feel like in the industry on writing and video, because I've done both, and I've always heard like, "Oh, I don't
Yeah.
know if people really care about that." I disagree. I think there's enough people to do. What do you say? What do you say to that, Mary?
I think it's not dead, it's just shrinking because our industry has shrunk overall, and those are the first to go. unfortunately, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And that doesn't mean that you can't. I tell this to like students that reach out all the time. That doesn't mean that you can't do it. It's just a smaller group that's going to be able to do it, which is unfortunate. But I never finish when a long form is done right. I never finish and thank God I really wasted 20 minutes there. I shouldn't have done that. You know, when it's good, it's like, wow, I feel enriched somehow. I learned something. I had an epiphany, you know, or like, oh, that was fun. So I just think like there are people that do a really good job out there, and I think I'm inspired by them. I hope long form doesn't go away because, you know, then I'll be out of a job. But I do think that I do think that storytelling matters, and people do want real stuff. They're just conditioned to think that they don't. Like the more we tell ourselves how bad our attention spans are, the more we reinforce that behavior.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/AHTT. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.
And
Yep, I've been saying the same thing about that with attention spans. I think that's so true, right? Like the more people reinforce that, the more people start believing it. And I don't think it's true at all. Like I absolutely don't think it's true at all. All right, so this is a question I've been asking a lot of other journalists, and we're going through this COVID-19 pandemic. We're all sheltered in place. Mirin wants to get outside enough, and she can't. Although I'm enjoying the pictures. The pictures you're posting on Twitter when you see a flower or something beautiful that you can appreciate, I appreciate it too. How has this pandemic, and I'm trying to work on something around this with other journalists and people working in sports, but how has this pandemic affected you and the job that you do? Has it at all? You know, how has it affected you?
Word, especially since you travel all the time and you have to be at certain places and get stories. Yeah, you're going to freaking other parts of the world to talk to LaMelo Ball, and you can't do that now for, you know, however many months it's going to be probably.
I know. My life was like really getting on planes and just going where the story goes. Like a lot of my friends would joke like, I saw on Twitter you're in New Orleans. What? Like when did you go? And I was like, oh, sorry, like I forgot to mention, you know, because it's just like whatever. I'll just hop on a red eye, you know. But yeah, I think the kind of things that I do, like the in-person interaction is so crucial because I'm not just studying what they're saying, I'm studying how they're saying it. So like the emotion, like these things that I can feel when I'm talking to them, these things that I can see, like little tendencies. Does this person's toe tap when they're getting nervous? Do they, you know, is their hair have a flecks of salt and pepper? And, you know, like it's just little things like that that really do make a big difference. Like when you're trying to get to know somebody, like there's no substitute for in-person interaction. And so it's been really hard for me because I can't do that right now. And I think also like, you know, the good thing is I'm not a beat reporter where like my job is dependent on like covering games. But at the same time, like I got turned down for a pretty big story yesterday by an NBA player that I'm really upset about because I'm just like, what are you doing? Like we're all in our houses, like, come on. But now they're like, no, I don't want to deal with media during this. So now it's like you thought access was bad prior to Corona. Access is even worse during Corona. So
Who's the player?
She can't say. She can't say.
Come on.
She can't say. You can't say. I'm not gonna let her do that.
I'm pretty disappointed.
Off mic.
And,
Off mic.
No.
Off mic.
Off mic.
Okay. Look, you see how he's like Patrick Beverly because he's just trying to pester you.
I'm
and
here.
wear you down.
I'm here today, man.
But he doesn't understand. I'm like Patrick Beverly too, so I'm not cracking.
Oh, there we go. I like that.
I like that a lot.
Good response, Mirin. That was an excellent response. I mean, I'm disappointed that story couldn't come about. You recently did a feature that I wanted to get into because I thought it was fantastic about American players overseas and how they are dealing with the coronavirus. And I thought it was just really great in some of the challenges they face. Bryan and I both know a player who plays in Italy, and he's dealing with that. He's on lockdown overseas. I actually have been reaching out to talk to him, but haven't been able to get in contact with him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, what gave you the idea to do this? I mean, I think it's good. I think people are forgetting about how some athletes outside this country are dealing with it. So I thought it was great that you brought it up. What inspired you to do the story and pitch it to do it?
Yeah, I think like when you have a national event, like a newsworthy event, like you're trying to like as a features writer, you have to ask yourself like, what is everybody else doing and how can I be different? And so I was seeing like
Yes.
the same story like over and over again, like how is superstar millionaire coping in his $1 million home, like which is really different than like, oh my God, like these athletes trapped abroad. So I was thinking like, God, what it must be like to be fearful in Italy. I'm scared in LA, but that's nothing compared to like Italy or Spain or all these places. And I was kind of putting the pieces together, and I thought I was just going to focus on Dearica Hamby because I had did that story on the Aces last year. Like I spent like a week with the team on the road. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to do the story on her. But then one of my editors, Elliot, had the really smart idea. He's like, you should just talk to like 6 different athletes and do like little vignettes of their experiences. And it was such a brilliant idea because it allowed me to like pivot geographically, right? It wasn't just the Italian experience, it was the Spain experience. And so yeah, I just you want to do your part, you want to contribute when there's something like that. So I was just glad to like be part of the conversation.
Yeah, it was good to hear all
How
those different experiences for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. How did these sort of conversations come about? And could you just tell us in detail, like, just what was it like getting to talk to them as all this was going on? What were those conversations like beyond, what we could just read in the story and things of that nature? Just, were they difficult? Were they hard to get together with them or stuff like that?
It was definitely hard to get, and then there was a lot of like there was a lot of difficulties post interview. Like the agents would call me and be like, I didn't know my client did this, I'm concerned that the team is going to cut him. And one guy in particular, because they can do that to Americans like for anything, right? And so they were just all fearful that like by talking they would lose their jobs or not get paid or whatever, not get groceries. And so there ended up being a lot of like back and forth after, like, is so and so's comments derogatory towards the government, and what if they get on a no-fly list? Like there was just a lot of scary conversations that happened actually after I did the reporting. But I think the people that I talked to were actually, they really opened up and they appreciated that I wasn't trying to write like, oh, look at this traumatic experience. It's more just like, look, it's a really human thing. And like, imagine what these people are going through, because Americans, we're so like focused on ourselves 24/7, but, we really, and we really need to have a global perspective on things.
Yeah, no, we do. No, I thought the piece really did that. I thought one of the things in the piece was, I'm forgetting which player it was talking about her daughter, her daughter had to go back with her mom back to the States in Atlanta, and, just how much her daughter was going to miss her in that experience. And I thought that really, humanized it for a lot of people that, hey, these people have families too. They're disconnected in
Right.
many ways, and they're just trying to be safe. You've done a lot of other, what's your favorite piece that you wrote about in the last, let's say, year? Because you got a lot of attention for LaMelo Ball. You've kind of been known as like the LaMelo Ball writer, in that way, which is not a bad thing.
Remember, Dex, don't put her in the box.
Yeah,
Remember?
you know what, Mirin?
No, it's so true. No, it's so true. I'm
Yeah.
afraid of like, I was afraid people would think like, oh, she's a one-hit wonder, like LaMelo.
Really?
Really?
Oh, like you dropped the single that charted at #1, and you were like, "Oh shit, can I do this again?" Could you actually, before you get into
No,
that
go
question,
ahead.
could you actually elaborate on this? When you have, as someone, you're laughing, but like when you have someone, or no, when you are someone that has a story that goes viral and like finally actually goes viral, given all the other great work you've done leading up to that, does it make you nervous, trying to follow up on that, as you mentioned, because now it's like, shit, everything I do now has to sort of, blow up in this way? Or did you not feel any of that?
Yeah, I feel that a lot because I think so my company is incredibly supportive and amazing. It's so they don't put this pressure on me. I put a lot of pressure on myself, and like I want to be great at writing in the same way athletes talk about like I want to be great, I want to be this, I want to be that.
Yep.
Like it's the same way in this. And so like for me, like once people started to like know my work, I felt more pressure to like each one has, because like basketball, you're only as good as your last game, right? And so I felt that pressure, like, well, this story is not as compelling as that. How am I still gonna be, I think like I still think like an athlete. So I put that pressure on myself, and I've just had to learn, like, those fears are there because naturally, like, this is a really big platform and I want to perform, and I understand how rare it is to have this job, and I understand that it could be gone at any second. And so like, I've just really had to focus on like, why do I do this? Right. I do this because I love this. I loved this before. I wanted to be great at this. Like, loving it is more important than being great at it. Hopefully one day you can be both. But for right now, like, it's more important that you make sure that you keep enjoying what you're doing. But yeah, that pressure, like, it's totally there. I mean, some just aren't going to be as strong because the access isn't as good, or, the person didn't really open up, or so there's a lot of variables for a long form, like there's a lot of things that go into it that people just don't even think about that would influence the story,
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure people don't. What's your favorite story that you wrote in the last year? That's what I was going to get to before. I was like, is it the LaMelo?
Yeah.
Is it the LaMelo? No, it's okay. No, Bryan had a great question there too. Is it? I gotta let the short people shine. I'm not trying to take away from anything on that today, because y'all gonna come for me. So I'm not
Yo,
gonna let that happen.
you're lucky. You're lucky we're on lockdown right now.
Oh God, you guys be coming for me. But like, do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite story that you've done? It could be from Bleacher Report, but what's the favorite story you've done from Bleacher Report in the last year?
I think it would be the story on the Antetokounmpo family, with Giannis and Alex, because it happened so organically. Like, I just was going to profile Alex. I had no idea that Giannis was going to be in the kitchen, let alone in the house, let alone anywhere near me, And so I just got lucky, and it ended up being a story about both of them. Like, I think it revealed as much about Giannis as it did about Alex. And I think that was my first story that I did where I focused on one person, but by shining a light on a person in their life, you actually are doing two profiles in one, because It was just Giannis, I feel like, has only been known for his, like, he's talked about in the sense of like physicality and like, wow, what a freak, but I think like my story showed like a softer side of him,
it did.
like paternal. And so I just really enjoyed that because it just happened so organically. And that's why, you never know what the story is before you go. Like, I always get nervous, like, on the plane ride there, I'm always like, oh, like, what if it doesn't go well? Like, what if they don't open up? What do you think's going to happen? It's just it's exciting nervous energy. But then for that story to like take me on a journey that I didn't even expect, like, that was really fun.
No,
we actually talked to Christina about this, but I want to get sort of a firsthand account of this when you were traveling to the other side of the world, sort of following around LaMelo Ball and all that was going on. Just what was that like? Because this is a position that a lot of people haven't been in, even in journalism, where they're following somebody in a place that they've never gone to. Christina told us about how often she was checking up on you during that time. Your car was all messed up and icy at one point. So like, could you just give us a firsthand account of like the nerves maybe that went into that experience, and just everything surrounding that?
Yeah, that story would not have been done without her. So again, like, all praise to Christina. Yeah, I think so. First, to kind of back up, like, where I was at in my life at that point, we had layoffs at the Register, so I lost my job, and I didn't know what was next for me, and so I became like a full-time freelancer. So I was like half BR, half ESPN, and so I just. Neither were hiring me yet. I was just really nervous. It had been a couple months. And then when Christina sent me to Lithuania, I wasn't on staff. So to me, this opportunity was it was like a tryout. Even though I had already written for Bleacher up to that point for a year, this was like the mother of all tryouts. And so I wanted to come back with a job. Like, I wanted to prove that I could handle, like, arguably the biggest story of the year, right? Like, it was a very big deal that they went over there. And so I was so nervous. Like, I don't think you understand. Like, I was so Like I was like shaking, like I was like on the plane just like, oh my God, and like the first thing was like finding the plane, right? It was levels of nerves. It was like, first we have to just get to Lithuania because like, because you had to like change planes and I forgot I think it was in Amsterdam at first. I'm not sure, but I didn't have a translator. I didn't speak the language. I had to pick up a car and drive in a foreign country. So there was all these like anxieties. I was just like, I was anxiety. I was literally anxiety personified. And so on the drive from the airport in Vilnius to this little town was like 3-hour drive or something. And the roads are narrow. There's no street signs. It starts raining all of a sudden. I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, please don't let me die. And then,
and you're driving on the other side of the road that you're not used to.
Well, that was in Australia.
In Australia, okay.
Yeah. This was luckily on the same side, but still terrifying because after that first day, it would snow, and I've never driven in snow. Obviously, this is not part of the California law.
Oh, right.
So the next day it's snowing. My car is completely like a white igloo, and I'm like, literally, what am I supposed to do? And like, I can't even call anyone because it's like 10 hours difference. So I was like, there must be a thing. Like, there must be a thing. And so I look in the car and I find like the shovel thing. And I made a really funny video for my family and Christina, like scraping off the ice and stuff. And I was like, is this how you're supposed to do it? Like, I think so. And so this is like Cali girl, like way out of her element. And I got my first winter coat, winter boots. Like, thank God I listened to my mom because she was like, these Steve Madden fashion boots are like, this is not going to work. You need like boots.
Real boots.
We don't have boots here. Like, we don't have like, oh, I need to go through this. I need to trudge. Mine were like really like nice.
Yeah. No, we got the boots out here. We got Tim's.
Like we don't do that. We don't do seasons in California. So
right.
I just
jealous.
So anyways, it was an incredible experience for me to grow as a person because when you get thrown into a situation like that where you're uncomfortable, you're scared, you're terrified, like you have to come back and deliver the story. You don't even speak the language. I had to like go up to people and be like, "Do you speak English? Will you translate for me?" I mean, it was a lot of like, okay, like let's try. And the gym was closed and I didn't have access anymore because LeVar was like making comments about Luke Walton, and so he was like, we're not going to do any media anymore. So essentially everything goes wrong. I'm shut out from anyone I need to talk to, and I just decide to just pop up at the gym myself. Hopefully the door's open. I'll just wait for everyone to show up. And then that's what happened. The door was open. I waited a couple hours, somehow convinced like Lithuanian scary men, authority figures, to let me stay. I think this is where being short and a woman comes in handy because I literally don't think they saw me as a threat. They were just like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Wouldn't have happened for me, that's for sure.
Yeah. And so I ended up like having a front row seat for 3 weeks. Anyways, it was a really incredible experience that I can never repay Bleacher for because I got the job. Life changed completely for me, and I owe them everything. I owe Christina everything.
Yeah, well, you did it. You went out there and performed, and you got it done. You stepped up. That's what you got to do. Stepped up. That's definitely what you got to do. Bryan, your mic came out again. We cannot hear you. You keep moving your mic again.
All right, I'm back.
You are back. Thank you.
I don't know why that'd be happening. I just unplug it.
He moves. You don't see. He moves a lot. He's always moving.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. Did you kiss the California concrete when you landed back from Iceland or whatever it was?
Oh my God, I did. I was just like, wow. I was just such a changed person, and like Christina was like, "Don't do anything for a couple days. Just sleep." And it was just.
But how important? But again, like, how important is it to just have an editor like that? Because like me being, we're around the same age. I'm like, I think a little bit younger, but when you're sort of navigating through the early parts of your career, you're fearful of getting yourself in a bad situation. Like, one of the things that I don't want to be a part of is a place with bad management, regardless of brand, money, all that stuff. Because if people above you, quote unquote, the people that you have to report to, if they're not respectable of your time and your health and things like that, then it's going to be a difficult working situation. So how important is it to have a Christina or just good editors and a good sort of working relationship there?
I mean, it's so crucial. Like I can't overstate how important she was to my survival. Like I would call her and it was like day 2 and I was freaking out. Like I didn't get any interviews today. And, I was like nervous, even though I had like 28 days left. And she was like, did you eat? And I was like, no, I wasn't thinking about that, and like, I was just she'd be like, how's your mental health? Like, how are you? Like I never had an editor care about me ever. I had editors that were so mean to me, that were just so demeaning. I never had anyone care about me before. And she was the first person to not only be nice to me, but like care about me. And, I will say like something, I can't say what it is, but something really bad happened when I was in Lithuania, and it was really scary. And, if I didn't have like a woman editor, I'm not sure I would have, mentioned this to the editor, but I told her what happened, and I was really shaken up. It was really scary, and the fact that she was there for me, and she was on the phone with me just for a really long time, and she's just like, look in the mirror, like you're here, you're okay, we're gonna get back up, and we're gonna keep moving, and that's why when I talk about Christina, it's so emotional, because like she's like more than an editor to me. She's a mentor. She's somebody I'll just always be connected with. We just FaceTimed the other day. It was hilarious. She showed me how to do the emojis on your face, when you're FaceTiming. I didn't know how to do this. And anyways.
Teaching you new things.
I love her so much. So I think, young people need editors. Like I'm lucky. I mean, I didn't have that early in my career, but yeah, I'm really lucky to have that now. And I love the editor I have now. Christina's moved on, but my new editor, Jake Leonard, is fantastic. And so I just feel lucky.
No, it's blessed when you have good leadership. And it's funny because I remember when Christina first came on the podcast, and I was trying to get her to come on for a while. Mirin, you had quoted the podcast, I think, on Twitter. You talked about your love, and that's kind of how I already followed you, but that's how we started like talking. And you told me there, it's like, I love Christina so much, and you could feel it even over the electronic communication how much you loved her. So like to hear you say it now, you could say that, and I can say I think it's beautiful to hear that from you, and also have heard the perspective from Christina, but knowing that there were also a woman supporting another woman out in the field is absolutely great, and it's why representation and diversity matters in journalism, and we need that more. So I guess the last thing I'm going to do, we're going to wrap up journalism, is we got to ask you, Mirin, what do you think about where sports journalism is right now? What do you think of the state of sports journalism? Are you happy where it is? I saw the look on your face. Mirin's like, oh, I don't know. I don't know, Mirin. You look like you're going to keep it real with us. So, what do you think about the game is right now? Where it is? There's so many questions with that, but go ahead, just tell us. What do you think? What do you think?
I mean, I think we can hold many ideas at one time in our heads, right? I think things are really tough. Things are really, really. A lot of people are losing their jobs. A lot of really talented, hardworking people are losing their jobs. We're in a state of flux and chaos where, businesses still haven't found a way to monetize and keep talented people in work. So there's really unfortunate things happening. At the same time, I think there's really good things happening. I think places like Bleacher are being, I know, positivity, what is that?
I'm here for this.
Places like Bleacher Report are so innovative. Like our app, that's where things are going, mobile. Like I feel so encouraged by the people there that are coming up with these new things. The Athletic, they employed like 400 people. Like I think if you're a young person, thank God you have The Athletic. Like literally, thank God that came around. So I think that there's like, at the same time that there's less opportunities, there's different opportunities and more. Right. It's weird how you can have less opportunities and more at the same time. But, nobody knows like where things are going. But I do think that like, I don't know if I'm going off topic, or too That's preachy, fine. But I always like, a lot of people reach out to me, like a lot of students, and say like, oh, I wish I could do long form, but, I think it's dead, or I feel like might not have a future in this. And, my parents are like, why should I go into this? And, I always tell them like, when I'm in these rooms of like trying to get hired or do jobs or stories, like nobody is saying to me, tell me about your social media, tell me about your follower count. Like they want to know like, what are you like in the field? Like, tell me about your reporting. What are your clips? What have you done? And it gives me faith in like storytelling still matters. And I understand that like like I said, a lot of great storytellers that had the skills and had the talent lost their jobs. So it's not a meritocracy, and a lot of horrible things are happening to a lot of great people. But I do think that like storytelling still matters. And I think that there are some people that can still see that. And so, you know, I always remain optimistic. Like I'd never told people like, don't go into this. Like I reached out to a lot of veteran journalists, and, you know, a lot of them said to me, like, you should not get into this. And that was like 2013 when I graduated. And so like, obviously, like it upsets me when older people say to younger people, don't get in this. I think if you love this and want to do this, you should go into it, like, but go into it with all your heart. You know, like for me as a long form person, like this wasn't like, oh, let me go try this. This was like, I have 5 pitches for you on Monday. I will have 5 more by next Monday. And if you don't like all 10, I have 5 more the next. You know, it was very like hustle. Same with basketball. It's just like you have to go give everything. Like I'm very aware that I could lose my job tomorrow, not because of anything with Bleacher Report, but just because how life moves. Like you never know. Once you lose a job once, like you don't look at things the same. And so I just vow to like always be the hardest worker and give everything, because you never know. But I just know that it's not possible unless you give everything. Giving everything doesn't mean you'll make it in sports journalism, but you definitely can't unless you give everything. Does that make sense?
No,
So
that's actually really dope. And stay hungry. That's the word to all the shorter people out there. I mean, tall people too. Stay hungry. You got to stay hungry.
You.
Yeah, you got Bryan. That's for sure. You absolutely have Bryan. Like Bryan's not going anywhere on that. Like. Because here's the thing for both you guys. You're not going to grow. You're not growing. You guys aren't going to grow. You guys are where you are, so you're going to keep the mentality that you have. And I respect the mentality.
Exactly.
I respect it 100%. Now, Mirin,
I just make sure I stay in shape.
there you go. Now, Mirin, we got to ask you, with coronavirus, you know, going on, you're in LA, your place of shelter in place as well too. What are you doing to stay sane? You know, Bryan and I've talked to some other guests about that. What are you doing to stay sane during the COVID-19 pandemic?
So I'm taking like 2 walks a day now, like so about like 5 miles total, like morning and afternoon, and that's like literally just keeping my brain like somewhat sane, just being outside. I'm definitely still like making sure that I get up at the same time I normally would, just to make me feel like, you know, like, okay, like you're a working human, like you need to do the same things you did before, and like
I've struggled with that.
Yeah, because if you get up at one time, you're like, I'm doing it. I'm up at 7:30. The next day, it's like 10. You just feel like, what am I? I'm just floating. And I hate the feeling of like just floating, you know, just coasting. So I'm trying to like wake up at the same time. I actually never spruced up my apartment much because I'm never home. And so I'm finally like decorating my apartment, which sounds dumb, but like, you know, like it's given me a lot of joy, to be honest, because when you like the space that you're in, you feel better. And I just never had time to do that because I was always on the road. And so it's just nice hanging up little things, you know. Also reading a lot of books right now. I just got a TV. I'm very behind on the times because I never had time to watch TV, because if you like are a podcast person, which I am, and you go to the gym 6 days a week, which I did before Corona, you have family that you see all the time. My family's here. You have friends that you see. All my friends are here. You don't have time for TV. So now I have time for TV. So I would appreciate if anyone send me some recs, because I'm a TV newbie.
What are you watching?
Okay,
what are you watching right now?
Here we go. I got something right for you.
Oh God.
Because you live in California.
Oh, don't do it. Don't do it.
What?
He's going to give me a bad rec.
I don't know. I just haven't watched it yet.
No, Dexter hasn't watched the show yet. But we're around the same age, so you might like this a little bit more.
So
I think
won't.
Dexter would like it still too, though. I think Dexter, I think you would like it too, but I'm not like fully sure.
Are you calling Dexter old?
He is. Thank you. He is doing that.
No, I'm just saying, you know, all right, so basically this is a show on Netflix.
So basically I'm calling him old.
Wait. First of all, do you have Netflix? Because you said you're okay.
I have it together. I literally just started. It's been like 2 weeks of watching TV.
Okay, there's a series called On My Block. It is highly rated on Netflix. Okay. It is extremely popular now. Me and a few of my friends watch it. We're into it. It's just a few, you know, high school kids just running wild in California. There's some gang stuff, but some funny stuff, and some, you know, you ain't got nothing else to do. So I figure, look, if I could send you that recommendation, Season 3 just came out. It's a solid, 30-minute episode,
Okay.
10 episodes a season. It's a solid watch.
What are you
Okay.
watching? What are you watching right now, Mirin? Now that you got
That
the
was
new
gonna be my
TV?
next question.
Yeah, what are you watching?
So I just started Little Fires Everywhere, of course, because I read the book and I loved it. I saw Shrill. So I've been starting with Hulu. I like Hulu. So I saw Shrill, which I like Shrill. But again, literally, I just started. So I tried Succession. What is all the hype?
No,
about?
what are you? No. We're gonna stop that right there. Succession is one of the best shows on TV right now. Here's the thing.
I gave it 5 episodes,
Mirin,
and I'm like,
Mirin,
why don't I like this?
The
like,
fifth- the
why
fifth-
am I literally was like, there must be something wrong with me. Are you
No.
not paying attention enough?
What?
And then it's like, no, I don't like it.
Really? Wait, so
I just find it like really weird.
if
I
I'm
find
not
it weird.
if I'm not mistaken, Mirin, I could be wrong on this. The 5th episode in the first season, is that the one where they have the big boardroom kind of the meeting and scene?
Yeah.
I don't want to ruin anything for anybody.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
it gets really, really good after that.
Yeah, I've heard it gets good after a certain point, but it's like why can't it just be good right? I don't know. I don't
I'm disappointed in Mirin.
Why can't it just be good right now?
Mirin's like, I need it good now. She's like, I need it good right now. I know, but here's the thing. I kind of feel you, because you would never want somebody to say it about one of your stories, right? Like they read the lead and they're just like, no, I'm not doing this.
I know, and I gave it a very valiant try. 5 episodes.
That's fair. That's fair.
Mirin, have you ever been a video game person?
No.
Oh.
You guys do not connect on that.
Such a bummer.
I'm literally just joining the 21st century, honestly.
Okay, so you said you listen to a lot of podcasts to pass the time, I guess. What are some of the podcasts you're listening to? Because I would imagine there's a bunch of stuff there. However, you're probably going to need to expand your rotation, given that we have all this time on our hands now. Like, I know me, I'm not going to mention the names of the shows because I'm not sure if I like them yet. But there's a couple others that I had to add to the rotation because I'm like, I'm here.
Got time.
I know. Mine are very nerdy. I love the long form podcast. I love Jeff Pearlman's Two Writers Slinging Yang. I love Fresh Air with Terry Gross. But I actually just started a great podcast called Floodlines by The Atlantic. It's about Hurricane Katrina, and it's a 9-part series, and it's so good. Like I'm like hooked. It's
I might listen
riveting.
to that.
You both actually would probably, Dexter, we talked about this before, the Luminary one with what's it called, Sonic Boom, about the Seattle Sonics.
Yeah.
Jordan, God, what's his last name?
It's a hard last name. I forgot what it was too.
Yeah.
He's so good. I heard it's good.
I used a free trial on Luminary for it, and it was worth it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I gotta check that one out. We gotta ask.
That's another recommendation for you.
We gotta ask you this
Thank
too,
you.
Mirin.
I need them.
Don't trust Bryan's recommendations. They're sometimes not good. I'm joking.
It's a journalism podcast.
I'm joking. I'm only joking.
We're all nerds here.
We are nerds.
I raise my hand to that. I have no problem with that. Mirin, are you a hip hop fan? Because we also talk hip hop here. Are you a hip hop fan on are you a fan of hip hop or not?
Yeah, what music? Right before you're about to interview whoever it is for the main subject for your story, what are you listening to?
Yeah, so I've written like every story to either D'Angelo or Daniel Caesar, so I'm more like slowed down.
Wow,
And people think it's weird that I listen to music with actual words when I'm writing, but I don't think it's weird. I mean, I'm still able to like concentrate. So I guess that's like more me than, but I don't know. Like, yeah, everyone thinks, and I do my work in coffee shops too. So not only do I have the distraction of like the music, but the coffee shop, like people.
Yeah.
But that's my favorite.
Okay, so you sound like you're more of an R&B person.
That's
you're more of an R&B
that took
person.
a while to like, I guess, master, because like for me in the beginning, it was very hard to listen to other words and write at the same time. But now, like, I mean, was that something that took years, or was it just always there?
I think I've always been like that because I would do the same thing with like my diary, because it would just be like a full like escape. So I would just like headphones in, like world out. And so it's the same thing with my writing now. Like I feel really weird when it's quiet and I'm writing. Like I have friends that do their writing at libraries, and I'm just like, this is so awkward.
It is, but like because I remember I had a point where I could only listen to instrumentals. I couldn't listen to other words. Like I remember I was studying for a chemistry test before in high school, and I was really struggling trying to study because I kept listening to songs and I had to listen to instrumentals. And guess what? Your boy got a 1% on that test out of 100.
What?
I was 16. All right, I was 15.
Not 5. Okay.
No,
one.
The 1 point was for writing my name. It was 20 questions. Y'all both face palm.
I don't know.
It was 20 questions, and then
touching my face. This is your fault.
Yeah, I'm not. I just did.
I still had a C plus in the class.
I don't know
what's
worse. I don't know what's more shocking: the fact that you got the 1%, which was just for writing your name, or the fact that you admitted it on this podcast. I'm not sure which one is more shocking.
I'm not ashamed of my past failures because it's a testament to what I've overcome in life. All right, you have to use it in other ways to motivate you. You know, like the hype instance, for example, that we talked about.
Fair enough. I have no argument with that.
One time for your mind, one time. One time for your mind, one time.
So Mirin, we do a segment on our podcast called "One Time for Your Mind," and what we try to do is we try to bring news to the people that might be something different that you found out during the week outside of the world of news or sports, just something you might have came across that you was like, oh, that's really interesting, something I didn't know. Bryan, do you have something for this week for One Time for Your Mind? And you know what we're going to try to do? We're going to try to keep it not Corona related if we can. If you found something, it's hard to do right this time, but if you can, try to keep it not Corona. What do you have, Bryan? What you got this week?
I actually want you to start, and you'll know why I'm saying that.
This is awful because I'm not necessarily sure I had something, and I was hoping you would start and I would find something. But
oh God, no. I have to start.
Mirin, can you start? Do you have something? If you can.
I have something that I thought of that's very basic.
Okay.
So I hope there will be no judgment because it's the only thing I've learned this week. I'm trying to invest in a coffee machine because I can't have coffee anymore because nothing is open. Everything is shut down in LA.
Yep. And
I learned that they are incredibly expensive. Like, why is there nothing between 500 and 5,000? So yeah, that's what I learned. Really pathetic.
Wow. I did not realize. I didn't know that because I didn't realize they were that expensive too. So that is actually good. Coffee machines, really expensive. I wonder if the price of not the price, but will more coffee machines be purchased because people like you, Mirin, are looking to make coffee at home. That is interesting.
I'm not the only one.
Okay, I found out what mine is now, Bryan.
You're gonna hate me for mine. There's a reason why I'm not going yet.
I feel like it's gonna be bad, but we'll figure it out.
Be bad.
So my One Time for Your Mind is I'm actually working on a story that will come out after the time this podcast drops. But obviously with sports being canceled, right? There's not the opportunity to bet on sports. So I found out something, and I'm working on a story about how people are now they're betting on the weather. Which, they're betting on the weather. And I actually came across this. So you know how we have like daily fantasy sports? There is like a daily fantasy weather app. And I just did an interview with the guy, one of the co-founders of it, and how that's working. And their numbers are increasing because people are looking for things to bet on. And now they're betting on the weather. So who knew it?
Wow.
There is actual bets on the weather. I'll post a link in the bio for this podcast with my story that's going to be on that. So it should be interesting.
I mean, that blew mine out of the water. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. But here's the thing, Mirin. Whatever Bryan has that's probably going to be extremely immature is probably going to blow all of our stuff out the water.
Last week I was on Twitter and I had discovered something. So I was looking at a post. I don't remember what exactly the post said, but the post was quoting a tweet from Ja Rule. I could not read the tweet. I couldn't read the tweet for whatever reason, right? So I clicked on Ja Rule's tweet, and I could not read it. So I go to his profile, and it says that I am blocked on Twitter by Ja Rule. And I don't know why, and I don't know what I did, but I went back in my history. Dex, you want to interject?
No, I was thinking about why it could be, but go ahead. I might be wrong now. Go ahead.
I went back in my history. There are only 2 tweets that I've had ever mentioning Ja Rule before, right? So I'm actually gonna pull those up right now. Neither of these, or at least to me, neither of these were inflammatory.
Was one about the Fire Fest and when we talked about it on this podcast?
No.
Huh. Okay.
Although I'm not positive that wasn't tweeted out from the podcast account that I then retweeted, but I did not see that. So I'm not entirely sure.
Got it.
That's actually a valid point. So apparently in January 17th, I tweeted out, who decided to play Ja Rule with 19 seconds left as the Nets trailed by 4? Where's Dave Chappelle when you need him? I was like, I don't know if that's enough to get somebody blocked, but I could see that, right? And then on November 25th, 2018, I tweeted out, why does Ja Rule address the crowd to make noise and then do the Brooklyn chants, but immediately follows with some pop song bullshit that swallows the chant? Because
that did it. I think that's the one.
Something happened at Barclays Center, right? Where the production was like, they used to have Ja Rule be like Brooklyn, whatever, and then it was just bad. So I kind of shitted on him a little bit there. So I was trying to figure that out, but I'm not sure. I always like 50 Cent more anyway. So I'm actually not mad at this.
He's definitely not unblocking you now if you had any chance of getting unblocked.
But here's the thing. I was trying to do the math, right? I was literally breaking this down, and I'm like, how much would a Ja Rule affiliation help me in 2020 anyway? Probably not much. So it's fine, man. Like, I remember one time we did a podcast, we were talking about Benzino killing the source, and then Benzino actually responded to the tweet.
He did. I remember that. I remember that.
Like, yo, man, like, I'm here still.
I see. See, that's that mentality, Mirin. That's the mentality. Mirin, has anybody blocked you? Anybody famous blocked you?
I was gonna say, my tweets are very wholesome. Book Twitter. I don't really get into anything.
Nobody's beefing with Mirin Fader. Not happening.
Nobody hates me. I mean, actually, there's this guy at the Register who I discovered years later when I went to see his profile. He blocked me. I don't know why. Like, literally no interaction. It's like very surprising for me, obviously, because I don't feel I have any enemies. So it was really.
You're like okay.
Weird.
Oh,
like, what did I do to you? Okay.
You brought up an interesting. What are some comments that you've seen from a story that have just made you laugh at the ridiculousness of? Like, have you ever gotten like SEC football fan or something like that? It's just utterly ridiculous.
I mean, a lot of. So, like, we have to respond to comments in the app now. And so now I literally see what everyone's saying about them.
Oh, you have to? Wait, why do you have to?
Yeah, we're trying to, like, boost engagement and make it like a, community. And I don't mind because some people are really nice and it's interesting. But then you get some that are just like, I don't even think I'm going to repeat them. But they're just so bizarre. And
you got to repeat one of them. And give us at least one.
Can we save this? We can save this for off mic. We can save it for off mic since he's dying.
I have so many off mic questions.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
At this point,
I'm sure you do.
Off mic.
Well, Mirin, you've been extremely grateful with your time. I know you messaged me and said, "Hey, Dex, we have nothing but time," and I hear you. But you've been more than grateful. We are so glad we finally got you on here. It's good to see you too, in this platform. Finally, we know it'll happen. If I'm out in LA or Bryan's out there too, or you're here in New York, we'll make it happen. The next pod, actually, what we should really do is the 4 of us adding Christina Tapper to this, and us all come together and have a podcast, and that'll be a lot of fun. So we should absolutely do that.
We definitely should.
Could you tell people where they can find you? Obviously, Bleacher Report, but where can they follow you? Tell them everything, how to find you. Tell them all that.
Yep. Yeah, my Twitter is just my first and last name, so MirinFader. And then I spend so much time on my website, so please check it out. It's just mirinfader.com.
There you go. Mirin Fader, the great, our favorite, features sports reporter. I think she's the best at what she does. Again, so grateful to have you up here. Please come back again and talk to us. We'll be sure. I'm sure you're going to write something else that's really dope, and we'll definitely talk to you about it. And be safe out in LA amid all this Corona stuff. Definitely,
Oh my God.
definitely be safe. All right, so that's it for episode 116 of the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast. For the great Mirin Fader and the also almost equally as short Bryan Fonseca, that is compared to Mirin Fader, not to
I'm
me.
actually slightly taller.
Slightly taller, but you saw a lot of the love among short people today on this podcast, and I know all our short listeners out there and viewers absolutely enjoyed that. I'm Dexter Henry. Stay safe, everybody. Keep practicing social distancing, and until next time, peace.